meeting for the Licensing Act 2003 subcommittee on Friday, the 10th of July 2020. Apologies for that, we're just having some technical issues up in the Lancastrian. We have members and our legal officer present in the Lancastrian, Democratic Services and Environmental Health joining remotely, and our applicant and licensing officer present in Committee Room 1, where the meeting is being streamed. If the technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issue, or if this is not possible, a new date and time will be organised. Please can I ask everybody to reference the paragraph number and the page number when speaking to enable everyone to follow you, and remember to mute your microphone when you are not talking. Please can I ask everyone to confirm they can hear and speak before the meeting begins, starting with members. Councillor Mark Clifford.
Present, Chair.
Councillor John Walker.
Present, Chair.
Officers, Elizabeth Walsh, Solicitor.
Present, Chair.
Nathan Housen, Enforcement Team Leader for Licensing. Nathan Housen, Enforcement Team Leader for Licensing.
The main man.
We just seem to have some issues with hearing you, Nathan.
Can you hear me now, Chair?
Oh, we can, but it's very, very crackly.
I'll come a bit closer. Is that better?
That's starting to get better. I think an ICT officer's on his way down just to double check that everything is fine. Philippa Braithwaite, Democratic and Member Services Officer.
I'm present, Chair.
Paul Lee, Environmental Health.
Present, Chair.
Samuel Wells, Applicant.
Present, Chair.
Wendy Boyd, Applicant's Mother.
Present, Chair.
No, girlfriend's mother.
Girlfriend's mother. Yeah. Present, Chair.
Thank you. Apologies.
No apologies, Chair.
Item 2 on the agenda is the procedure for today. I will read the procedure. If anybody has
Chair,
any... Yeah.
sorry, Chair, this is Philippa. Just to interrupt, you've skipped declaration of interests.
Oh, thank you, Philippa.
Sorry.
What am I going to do when you leave? Declarations of any interest? No, please do declare if you feel you need to at any point. Now, item 2, procedure. The procedure we will follow today is on page 3 of the agenda papers. Nathan, have you had any Regulation 8 forms returned?
Chair, the applicant didn't return his Regulation 8 notice. However, I understand he wishes for Wendy to speak on behalf of the applicant. Perhaps it would be for members to decide whether or not they wish to give that permission.
Thank you. Well, using Chair's prerogative, I think we will allow Wendy Boyd to speak. The licensing officer will begin by outlining his report. We will then have questions from the committee, from the applicant, and from Environmental Health. The applicant will then be asked to make their representations, followed again by the opportunity to ask questions. Environmental Health will then be asked to make their representations, once again followed by the opportunity to ask questions. Environmental health and the applicant will then have the opportunity to sum up before we go into private session to deliberate. We ask that everyone leave the call and the building at that point, and we will contact you later today to confirm the outcome. Are there any questions on the procedure? No. As we won't be going back into public session after the deliberations, I will say now that agenda item 4, I have no urgent business to be discussed. We now move on to the application. Item 3, determination of application to vary a premises licence for the Little Inn on the Park, number 4, Holgate. Nathan, please can you present your report?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to go straight to the report, which is at agenda page 5, and I'll start at paragraph 1. Hopefully, members of the committee will be able to see where I'm reading from. The purpose of this report is to advise members that an application has been made under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003, which is to vary a premises licence and to which relevant representations have received. It's to request that members determine the application in accordance with the provisions of the Act. I'll move straight to paragraph 4, which is just a reminder of the licensing objectives. Members will note that particularly relevant to this application is the third objective, which is the prevention of public nuisance, and we'll come on to that later on in the report. Members are reminded that the duty of the authority is to take steps necessary to promote the objectives in the interest of the wider community and not those of the individual licence holder. I'll skip straight to paragraph 8 of the report, and you'll see that the premises has benefited from a premises licence since 2013, and that licence authorises a series of licensable activities, and there's a summary in the table in paragraph 8 of what those activities currently are. Late on in 2019, an application was received from the applicant to transfer the premises licence and to vary the designated premises supervisor, and that's into the name of the current licence holder. And you'll find, members, that there's a copy of the current licence appended at Appendix 1. I'll move on to paragraph 10. On the 17th of February 2020, an application to vary the premises licence was made by the licence holder, and you'll find a copy of the application in Appendix 2. There's 3 things that this application seeks to do. Number 1 is to replace the existing plan with an updated layout.
Nathan, can I stop you? We're getting a lot of feedback.
Is that any better?
Partially, yeah. Keep talking, we'll let you know.
Is this any better?
Yes, that's way better. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, thanks. Did you hear everything that I've said up to that point?
We just got on to February 2020. There was an application to vary the licence.
Okay. Yeah, so that application sought to do 3 things to the licence, which was number 1, to replace the existing plan with an updated layout with a new bar. Number 2, extend the permitted hours for licensable activities and opening hours. And number 3, proposes a number of additional measures as conditions in the operating schedule. And then at paragraph 11, you'll be able to compare the activities or the proposals in the application and how the application seeks to amend the permitted hours. Paragraph 12, there was a notice displayed at the premises during the 28-day consultation period, and also there was a notice placed in the local newspaper as required by the regulations. During this period, the applicant agreed a number of additional measures with Lancashire Constabulary, and you'll see those measures which were appended at Appendix 3, and it will be for members to decide whether or not those conditions remain appropriate and whether they wish to impose those measures on the licence. Moving on to paragraph 13, on the 9th of March 2020, a representation was received from an environmental health officer regarding the likely effect of the grant of the variation on the promotion of the prevention of public nuisance objective. You'll note that there's a copy of that representation which is appended in Appendix 4. Members will note that the officer recommends that the application should be refused. There were no other relevant representations received during the consultation period. In accordance with the regulations, the applicant was given notice to provide clarification on particular points, namely that point, what action has been taken by the applicant, if any, following the visit to the premises by an environmental health officer. As well.
Sorry,
I've
Nathan,
been
we
told
can't
that nobody can
hear
hear
you.
anything.
No.
Try again.
Can people hear me again now? Can they? Is that better?
Yeah. Can you just go back about 50 words and
I think
just
it's up
repeat
to-
yourself?
I think it was just up to the environmental health part.
Okay. Well, I was reading from paragraph 13. Paragraph 13 states a representation was received from environmental health regarding the likely effect of the grant of the variation on the promotion of the public nuisance objective. And there's a copy of that representation appended to Appendix 4. Members will note that the officer recommends that the application be refused. And during that consultation period, there were no other relevant representations which were received. I'll just pause to check that the committee can still hear me. Is that better?
Yes, I think. Chair,
Right,
you
I
can
can
hear that.
Yeah. Okay.
No, sorry, Nathan. Sorry, it was fine, and then it just went really fuzzy.
Better now?
Yeah. Can
Okay.
you
Thank you.
hear Nathan, Chair? Yeah.
Okay, so paragraph 15, in accordance with the regulations, the applicant was given notice to provide clarification on the following point, and that was what action has been taken by the applicant, if any, following a visit to the premises by environmental health officers regarding a noise complaint. And it will be for the committee or the applicant to set out in their representations what action has been taken. Further to regulations, the environmental health officer has been given notice to provide clarification on the following points at paragraph 16. And that's details of any complaints made directly to environmental health, to include any investigation carried out, and detail of the number of residential properties considered to be in the vicinity and whether those flats are currently occupied. Now, members should have seen there's been additional documentary information provided, which is appended to this report, which answers those questions. But if any clarification is required, then they should seek that from the officer. At paragraph 17 and paragraph 18, the sections of the Council's approved statement of licensing policy, which are particularly relevant to this application. Although there's been particular points picked out of the policy, members should consider the policy as a whole when reaching the decision. I'll move to paragraph 22, which is the conclusions part of the report. And the decision should be based on the individual merits of the application and the representation. In accordance with the regulations, a decision must be made within 5 working days of the determination. In accordance with section 35, the authority must, having regard to the representations made, take such steps mentioned below, if any, as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. And those steps are to grant the variation as applied for, subject to any additional agreed conditions, to modify the conditions of the license, and to reject whole or part of the application. And to clarify that point, members, it's perfectly permitted for you to accept part of the application and to reject other parts of that. So it is within your discretion to modify any bits as you wish. Members will note that for the purpose of the previous paragraph, conditions are modified if any of them are altered or omitted or a new condition is added. And that's the report, Chair. Unless there's any questions or clarification required from the committee, I'll pass back to you.
Thank you, Nathan. Just before we go to questions from the subcommittee, I'm going to adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes because the sound quality, whilst I can understand what you're saying, is not as good as other people on the call. So I'm just going to adjourn it for 10 minutes so that we can just have a look at what can be improved. Back in 10. Thank you.
I'm just going to mute everyone on this call for now.
Right, hopefully we've got the issue now resolved. I will just go back through to make sure everybody is there. Councillor Mark Clifford.
Present, Chair.
Councillor John Walker.
Yes, Chair.
Elizabeth Walsh.
Yes, Chair.
Nathan Housen. I'll wait for the microphone to be moved near you. Are you there, Nathan?
But I am here now, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yep, that's it.
Also, the applicant and Wendy Boyd are here.
Right, excellent. And Philip, are you still there, aren't you?
I'm still here, Chair.
Excellent.
Could we
Right.
just check that environmental health if Paul Lee's still on the call?
Oh, sorry, Paul Lee.
Yes, Chair.
Excellent.
All
Right.
present and
moving-
correct.
These things are sent to test us. Right, moving back to the agenda, does the committee have any questions for the licensing officer? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. It says there that the premises license was originally granted in September 2013. Has there been any problems with this pub or premises over the last 6-7 years?
Can you hear me, Councillor Walker?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. To be honest, there hasn't been any complaints received. However, it was a different premises. It was only recent, or it was only taken over by the applicant themselves in December 2019. So the actual sort of business that the premises carried out was very different to what is being carried out now. But in direct answer to your question, no, there were no complaints received during that period.
Thank you. Can I continue? I mean, it says here, application agreed a number of additional measures with Lancashire Constabulary. Will that come out in the questions later on, or can you tell us what the agreed number of additional measures were?
Yes, Councillor. Actually, they're appended to the report. If you scroll to, sorry, just bear with me.
It's
Proposed conditions are on page 35 of the agenda.
Page 35. Right, thank you.
The measures in brief are relating to CCTV, Challenge 25, and a documented training scheme and an incident log of any notable incidents. That's a brief idea of that, but you'll find the actual wording of the conditions on page 35 and 36.
Right, very good, thank you.
Any further questions from the committee?
I've just got one, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's. Go on, Liz.
Nathan, can you just confirm what the current use of the premises is for, please? Just so it's clear for members.
Well, in the past, prior to the current applicants or the current license holder taking over, it used to be a restaurant, I think a Chinese or Indian restaurant. It's now currently being used as a cafe with alcohol sales included, and later on in the day as or proposed to be used as a bar or pub, I suppose, later on in the day.
Thank you, Nathan. No questions? Right, we will go on to Mr. Wells and Miss Boyd to ask any questions to the licensing officer.
Do you have any questions?
No.
No,
No,
we're all
Chair.
happy. All happy.
No questions. Any questions from the environmental health?
No questions. Thank you.
Right, we'll now go on to the applicant. Will make their representations regarding their application.
Oh. Reason we'd like the extension on the Sunday hours is just so they can continue to serve dinners to the area public with alcohol. and to close at a suitable time. I know on the application it says 11 o'clock, but I think realistically 10 o'clock would be sufficient.
Yeah, because it's already down as 10.
Yeah.
We've requested it till midnight, but 10 o'clock would be acceptable.
Yeah.
We feel
It's only just so
it's
that
only
we
the
can,
Sunday, isn't it?
just so that we can continue with the evening meals that we wish to supply. On a Sunday, I offer Sunday dinners as well as other food. That seems to be quite popular, but with the 5 o'clock timeline for the stop of alcohol, it tends to put people want to come out a bit later and eat at leisure with a alcoholic drink. And that's our only reason behind it.
Sorry, can we just stop you there for a moment because it's starting to drop out?
Yeah.
Could you just repeat? Could you just repeat from the request of hours that you wanted? Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So the request for the extended hours on the Sunday from 5 o'clock till 10 o'clock. I think on the application it said midnight, but 10 o'clock would be sufficient. It's just so that we can continue with service of food and obviously the selling of alcohol while people are dining.
Just to clarify, sorry, am I okay to interrupt, Chair? Just to clarify, when you say the sale of food on point 11 of the agenda item, the proposed extension of permitted hours only looks at recorded music, retail of alcohol and hours open to the public. So are you looking at the sale of alcohol and hours open to the public? Sorry, just to clarify. Yes,
on the Sunday.
Yeah, we've asked till 11.
It says that we have actually on the application put 11.
Yeah.
But 10 o'clock would suffice. It's just so that we can.
Just to be clear, is that for the sale of alcohol and hours open to the public?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Chair.
I'll coincide with the thought.
Is there any further representations you wish to make before we go to questions?
No.
Thank you. Right, questions from the subcommittee?
Chair.
Councillor Mark Clifford.
You've mentioned that 10 o'clock would be acceptable on a Sunday. However, your application is stating moving from currently 10 o'clock through the week to 12 o'clock. Could you tell me the reasons you feel that that is needed, please?
I think initially that was a bit of an error when the application form was filled in. I believe that all the hours were put down throughout the week to be the same, from 11 a.m. till 11 p.m. of the night, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary.
Thank you.
Can I, Chair, sorry, is it okay if I...
Just bear with me. Right, just going over to Liz.
Is it okay? Sorry, just following on from Councillor Clifford's point, I just think it might be best if we just clarify this at this point then. Are you now requesting that the closing times for all of them would be till 11 o'clock, Monday to Saturday, 11 till 11?
Yes,
what you've just said.
That would be perfect.
Yes.
I think initially when the application went in, it was considering the bank holidays also, but that doesn't need to be, included. 211 would suffice.
So Monday to Saturday for recorded music, retail of alcohol and hours open to the public, you're happy to have it 11 till 11, Monday to Saturday?
Yes.
And then on New Year's Eve, would that be the same, 11 till 11?
That's till 12:30, New Year's Eve.
So you want it to still be 12:30?
Please.
Okay.
And then the Sunday's 10.
And then the Sunday till 10 p.m.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I just have a point there. If I might just make a slight point there, just for the purpose of clarity, obviously the applicant, the license already permits the license activity to be carried out until 12:30 on the license. So it's not within the power of the committee to reduce the hours already permitted by the license. Just to be quite clear on that.
Okay.
Right, just going back to the questions. Obviously, there has been a noise complaint. Can you tell the committee what you have done to mitigate any further complaints surrounding noise?
Well, it was a mistake. We didn't realise how much the sound carried. Once we received the complaint, it's not happened again. Music is turned down to a more acceptable level. That I've spoke to the resident above, and everything seems fine. Obviously, we want this business to work. We want to comply with all the licensing objectives, and we just want to work, with you as well as the residents. So, we are very conscious of people. If we don't allow anybody to come in that's already intoxicated, and if people start getting loud, we ask them to leave or the music's turned off. But we don't get any problem. So it was a one-off.
Just to clarify, obviously you've said you've spoke to a resident, and have you installed any technology or any noise suppressant materials within the premises to make sure that any noise that is at over and above an acceptable level is mitigated?
As of yet, I haven't. I've only just realised that you can get soundproofing off of Amazon, which I'm intending to do. I don't want to spend any more money until I know that we can go forward with this. As you can appreciate, I've invested a lot of money, so I'm a bit on the back foot at the moment with how this variation goes today. More investment will be put into the property to eliminate any noise, and obviously keep the music down. It's never going to be, more than a respectable limit.
And we'd stop at 10 anyway.
And we stop where music is off before closing time. And anyway, it encourages people to drink up and go home.
Right. Any further questions from the committee?
Sorry, Chair, I've just got one. I do apologise. Obviously, reading through the report, there was an allegation that there was a lock-in, and it was obviously after closing time. Could you elaborate further on that for the committee? Was
this going back to the noise complaint?
Yeah, it's just going back to the noise complaint.
It was a family member of mine's birthday, and that is the only time. It wasn't open to the public. I had a few members of family there just celebrating, and that's how it all come about, to be fair. So it certainly hasn't happened since, and it's never going to happen again.
And just one further question: have you put any further applications in with the council regarding the premises?
A planning application for change of use is going through at the moment.
And can you just explain what the change of use is for?
It's like to do with the planning permission for an A3 going to a mixed cafe bar, which is an A4.
So at the moment, it's just used as a cafe up to
a licensed cafe, yeah.
A licensed cafe. And food is served up until closing times at the moment, so up till 10 o'clock.
Yes.
I've got no further questions, Chair.
Thank you, Liz. Is there any questions from Paul Lee?
Yes, Chair, please. Just a couple for Mrs. Boyd.
Yep.
Could I just ask where the empty bottles and the empty kegs are stored from the bar side of the business? Are they stored outside?
The empty bottles are in a wheelie bin, which are stored outside within the yard, and also the kegs are left safely within the building, ready for collect.
Okay. Sorry, a further question. Would they tend to be taken out? When would you tend to take them out? Would that be taken out at the end of the night or the following day?
Well, if it's not taken out at the night time because of the noise, it's emptied the next day.
Okay. Thank you. No further question.
Right, we will move on to representations from environmental health. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a couple of main concerns about this application. The first one relates to the level of insulation between the premises and the flats. There's a sort of quite a great deal of uncertainty really about the level of insulation between the two. And I think historically when we've had licensed premises that share part of a structure with a residential property, we have had issues. Our experience is that it's really quite difficult to insulate a property to a level where it doesn't cause a problem. I think it's quite difficult. I know Mrs. Boyd was talking about buying insulation off Amazon.
Paul,
Sorry, Paul.
you're just breaking up a bit.
I'm breaking up. Sorry.
Yeah. Can we just have a look at that again, just for a minute?
Yeah. Sorry. Where did I get to?
You said from your experience.
Okay. Yeah. In my experience, and the experience of the team really. Where you have a licensed premises sharing a part of a structure with a residential premises, we do tend to get issues with noise, which are really quite difficult to sort of overcome. I know Mrs. Boyd was talking about buying insulation material off Amazon, but if you were going to go down that route, we will be looking for you to get a professional acoustic report done. And for a professional company to come and do noise insulation, obviously that becomes very expensive. So that's one of the concerns. The other concern that I have is relating to noise from customers and also possibly smoke from customers being outside smoking. You've got a habitable room immediately above the front entrance of the premises to one of the flats. You've also got habitable rooms at the back, although they are set back a little bit. The situation's a little bit better there. And I think there's a potential for noise from people gathering, having a smoking break, maybe at the end of the night, and also from a potential nuisance issue with smoke as well. And then the other thing, which is why I was asking about the bins, is whether you will get noise from, bottles and kegs being put out late at night. But I think the main issue from our point of view really is the insulation between the structure of the building. And I think that's really quite difficult to overcome. That's me finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Questions from the committee? Paul, obviously you've mentioned the residences directly above. Within a 50-yard radius, you also have two independent living complexes of Ravensthorpe and Herwood. Have you done any investigatory work around possible impact on those properties?
We wouldn't. No, Chair, we wouldn't do that sort of proactively. We would, obviously, if we received a complaint from residents in those areas, we would investigate that as a noise complaint. I mean, there are 6 flats on the sort of first floor above the premises. I think probably 4 of those are either completely above the premises or partially above the premises. So we have got 4 flats there who share part of the structure with the building. I would think probably Harewood. I mean, we've only had the one complaint, and what happened was my colleague Neil, who was dealing with the complaint at the time, went out with one of the licensing officers, had a chat with Mrs. Boyd. Initially, we send out, when somebody makes a complaint, we send them some information out and we ask them to come back to us if they then want to proceed with the complaint, having read that information. After we sent that, the licensing officer and my colleague went out to see Mrs. Boyd, and then the complainant apparently had no need to come back to us then. So because of that, we didn't get any specific nuisance record sheets giving dates and times, and we didn't get any noise recordings. It never progressed beyond the initial stage. So we don't have any specific evidence to say that it was a nuisance. But I think looking at the sort of setup of the property, we would expect that there will be problems with it.
Thank you. Any further questions, committee
Yes.
members?
Sorry, Chair, I've got
Liz?
one. But
Yep.
Paul, did you say you've not had any further complaints since the first complainant complained? No. And can you just confirm when? Correct. Can you just confirm when the first complainant made you aware of it?
Yes, it was the 30th of January 2020. The complaint they made that was that there'd been a disturbance on the 28th of January and also on the 29th.
But you've not had anything since then?
Nothing since, no.
And you've not had anything from any further residents or the surrounding area about any customers outside the property or anything like that? Had no complaints?
No.
And as far as you're aware, the Little Inn has been running and been open for business since that time as well. It's not close, obviously, with lockdown. Apart from that, it's been running throughout February.
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
That it, Liz?
Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Right. Ms. Boyd, Mr. Wells, any questions for the Environmental Health Officer?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Therefore, can I ask the Environmental Health to sum up?
Yes, Chair. In summary, 2 main concerns. One relating to the level of insulation between the 2 properties. And as I explained before, that's based on our sort of historical jobs, similar jobs that we dealt with. They're generally very difficult to deal with and very difficult to get a level of insulation where it doesn't cause disturbance to the residents. And then a second point relating to customers outside, either at the end of the night or going out for a smoke, and issues potentially with noise from the customers and also from the smoke itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And can I ask Ms. Boyd and Mr. Wells to make their sum up, invited to sum their case up?
We are eager to comply with the conditions. I will consult with an acoustic consultant if we are given this opportunity to extend the hours for the Sunday. Until then, I can't see the point in me investing any more money in the premises until I know in which direction we are heading. And I'm just, I will comply with any condition that you state.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your representations. We will be going to the decision-making process. All parties retire while the subcommittee will make its decision. We now ask the applicant, environmental health and our licensing officer to leave the call and the building as we go into private session for deliberation. You will be contacted later today and informed of the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I presume at this point, ICT, please can you stop recording?